when Pastor Ron called me to be inserted in this series of Lost and Found, I don't usually get inserted. I come to listen to his series, but not usually get inserted. But I was listening to him, and it sounds like he has an allergy. So I said, okay, fine. I'll be willing to step in. And not realizing when I got here, I got the same allergy. And I saw some of the members. Seems like affected with the same allergy. Wink, wink. Well, I came here to be a support. So if I'm not able to finish this, it's because of the allergy. But I'm going to try. I'm going to give my best. The presentation I gave a few weeks ago, it's called Midwifing a Prodigal Father. And I'm so happy that I have a brother here sharing the same prodigal father in heaven. And maybe you'll be asking, prodigal usually is a description, an adjective given to the son. Why are we using it to define the father? Let me tell you a story. There was a story, sometimes it's called a parable, but it's not in the scriptures. It's about the living water. One day, the living water felt like it wanted to make the water felt by the face of the earth. So the living water freely and without limit flowed into an artesian well to invite the community to enjoy its invigorating, clean, and pure water. Oh, the whole community enjoyed and got nourished by this water. And then people thought of, maybe we have to do something. Humankind are never content to leave the water in its Edenic state. So they decided to fence the well and start to charge admission to those who are coming to drink it. And started to claim property of the land and started to create laws, complicated laws, especially who would have priority in taking of the water. And then eventually they put locks on the gates surrounding the living water. The water got angry, got offended. So the water slowly stopped giving water to the well and tried to find a different artesian well. The property, who's now owned by the community's elite and powerful, thought that they still have the same kind of water and selling the water that they thought has the magic. But people learned and found out that's no longer the same water, so they tried to search and finally found where the water went. But they did the same. And then the water left, and people find, and lo and behold, it's been recorded in history. I heard there is a living water in Anderson Church. Brothers and sisters, this water could be identified as prodigal, limitless, it's liberal, it gives everything it could. And I heard it was also in this place. But as we continue, we'll go back to that illustration later. I'm going to skip some of the slides here because I use this slide to honor some of our loving professors. But let me talk a little bit about the word prodigal or lavish. This is a picture of wastefulness, extravagance, improvidence, excessiveness, and sometimes on the border of irresponsibility, boundlessness, imprudence, irrationality, degenerate, libertine, reprobate, and the one who gives sometimes even called squanderer. But the simple picture is, how could you let go of something that you have invested, protected, took care, and then just letting it go like that? What a waste. It's still in the art of letting go as far as the gospel is concerned. And I'd like to focus on the recipient of this prodigal love coming from a prodigal father, the true brothers. But I'd like to start with the older brother. From this perspective, from the perspective of the older brother, I have a belief that one of the main reasons why Jesus gave this parable is not for those who are represented by the younger brother. It is more for those who are represented by the older brother. There were people in the crowd, people who were listening at Jesus' storytelling and parable and teaching. Some of these people are coming from a very elite group, members of the lawmaking body of the church, leaders, elders, treasurers, secretaries. They could be considered dignitaries back then, but very curious and carefully listening to what Jesus was saying. So, the parable is actually, from that perspective, is for them. And for this particular act of love, which is found in Luke 15, let's see if I can. Okay, there you go. I'd like to start with the idea of what power, kind of power, can this love demonstrated by the Father prodigally, okay? The kind of power it creates, or the impact it has on either the younger or the older son. So let's start with the older son. We know the story that the older son was experiencing resentment and disappointment when he heard that the father was having a party for the younger son who squandered the father's money. So, in the mind of this older son, all of those adjectives that I was reading to you This is irresponsibility. This is squandering. What a waste. Why throw a party to someone who doesn't deserve it? Inviting people in the community, with the fat calves being at the center of this, feeding these people with such precious gems, or, to make this party really fabulous and wonderful. Create such kind of party to honor someone who has disrespected you. I don't get it. This is indeed irrational, unreasonable, a disgrace, disrespectful, not only for the community, but especially for me, who has devoted time, energy, fealty, and faithfulness to you. I didn't even get a goat being faithful to you. I don't understand this. I don't get this. In other words, this kind of love, I don't know if you can read it, could make one, such as this older son, puke, smirk, disdain, hate, despise, disparage, contempt, averse, deride, scorn, dislike, reject, abandon, dismiss, renounce, spurn, refuse, scoff, eliminate, disbelieve, discredit, guilt, discount, or repulse the very scene that he is seeing. Gospel is not always meant to please everybody. And this is a message for those who never left the church. If the center of this parable is for us who's been in this church faithfully worshiping God, has been this church faithfully serving, giving tithes and offering, keeping the Sabbath holy, faithfully raising our kids, sending them to Christian education, faithfully doing our work in the church, the gospel could be distasteful if or when we see someone who is receiving an honor that in our eyes should not be delivered, should be a disservice if such a party would happen. If inviting people to experience the respect, to experience the honor, to experience the acknowledgement, the validation, that in our mind cross certain boundaries, such as the laws that are playing in our mind, the status, the strata that they have to cross. Belief, belonging, behavior. Let's check the box. What is his belief? Does he see things the way I see things? Does he believe the way I believe things? Does he believe the way the church believes? Belong. Does he really belong in this church? Behave. Does he behave the way a Christian should behave? If we cross these layers and just honor this individual just like the prodigal or the lost son in here, it's very easy to find ourselves grumbling in the dark, wondering what an unfair God or Father this is. The first impact that I'm trying to drive here as far as someone's response to the gospel is resentment. In verse 28, the older brother became angry and refused to go in, so his father went out and pleaded with him. Let me tell you that this is a more serious condition than the one who was feeding the swine. Let me tell you why. The Father never came to see the Son who was feeding the swine in its deepest crisis. The Father remained outside the gate of the house with a confidence that that son would know how to go back home. But the older brother, he needed the Father to come to him. That's the difference. While this older brother never left the house of the Father, his heart has traveled so far that the Father has to plead with him to go back in. Because resentment in the Christian journey, my friends, is more dangerous than the sense of loss of someone who is out there wondering how to get back home. Resentment is an anger looking for justice for others and for self, believing that the unfairness, believing that he is a victim of someone's unfairness. Therefore, he has to seek justice. And that mindset has blinded him to understand the degree and the depth of his own loss. That's why the Father has to plead with him. Let me briefly take you to the mindset of the older son. He has this idea of the Father. And the idea of the Father, for some reason, was not consistent to his expectation when the Father was celebrating and partying because the Son has returned. Therefore, this older brother has a great knowledge of the Father, but never experienced the depth of the Father's love. It's possible that we have this wonderful idea of God, but never experience God himself. So, let me take you to this, how the mind works, okay? Whenever we see something and then felt in response to what we are seeing or what we are experiencing, it's a very simple math in our mind. You said something wrong, and I feel bad. I feel bad because you said something offensive. If you haven't said if you haven't said offensive things, then maybe I will still be feeling okay. So it is your fault that I'm feeling sad because you said something offensive. Social scientists and psychologists said it is not actually that simple. Whatever is happening externally, outside of you, is going through a filter. So the activating event, such as saying, or a brother is saying something offensive, that's an activating event, would go through a filter. And the filter says, oh, this is very hurtful. This means that you are nothing. This means that you are less valued by the other person. And because you are less valued, you're no longer important in this world. And because you're no longer important in this world, you have to seek justice. You have to fight for yourself. And then, because of that filter, you start to experience all kinds of feeling, because the feeling is the trigger that invites you to read the message that your belief is telling you. The son, the older son, saw the party, activating event, the party. The son saw the father has made this party for the son, activating event. And then the belief system started to work in his mind. And then he said, okay, hold on a second. Did I get this kind of party my entire life? No. That means I am less important. That means this person is more important. Bigger party, more importance. No party, no importance. So I have no importance. 2, what a waste. Big party for a very insignificant person. He's already insignificant because he left. He wasted dad's money. In return, he gets this kind of party. This is a waste, and this angers me because this is not fair. So the belief is now speaking to himself, and the resentment that he is feeling is not because father has made a party for the lost son. The feeling was communicating and responding to his belief system, his idea of the father. If we are experiencing resentment because someone else who in our mind doesn't deserve to be praised, to be honored, to be respected, to be valued, and yet they experience that, which in our mind felt like we never experienced this, we are responding to our idea of God, an idea of self, but never experiencing the real God and the real self the way God sees us. This is what's happening with the older son. With this kind of lens, brothers and sisters, we tend to miss who God is. Just like the people in the village, when they see the value of the water, when they start fencing the water, when they start charging admission so that they can continue to make this environment beautiful, they can make rationalization. When they finally endorse this property to elite people who are responsible enough to keep and maintain the beauty of the surroundings of this artesian well, in their mind, they are just trying to do their duties, but they are responding to their idea of the water, not knowing who the water or the living water is. This parable, the prodigal father, whatever you want to call it, was intended for those who are representing the older son. And who is representing the older son? You and me. We are not the ones who is out there. We're not the ones who's feeding the swine. We're not the ones who is trying to understand what are we going to do to work out our own salvation. We are the ones who are keeping the fort. We are the ones who are keeping the fence. We are the ones who are keeping the laws. We are the ones who are keeping the property. But the question is, in our service, are we relating with our idea of God or the God himself? Now, let's talk about the younger son. Before I go to the younger son, just want to remind you that in the scriptures, the Bible is consistent in speaking to those who are represented by the older brother. For example, parallel with this parable is the parable of the publican and the publican and the Pharisee. The publican was saying, Lord, I don't know if you are listening to me. I don't know if I deserve it. I don't know if I don't know if I can even look my eyes to heaven. I'm so sinful. I'm so wretched. I'm spiritually bankrupt. But please, have mercy on me. And the Pharisee on the other side was praying and said, Lord, what a joy. You raised me up in this church. You gave me a community, an opportunity to serve, an opportunity to pray with freedom, an opportunity to be in the pews, to be in the pulpit. What a great opportunity. I just want to thank you that I'm not like those who don't have this opportunity, those who don't have this privilege. And Jesus said, who do you think was justified between the two? And Jesus said, the publican. And there's another parallel. The thief on the cross, there were two thieves with Jesus Christ back then. One was wondering why this God, or this one who claims to be God, is not using his power to free them. If you claim that you're God, come on. Don't claim that you're God unless you can free us all. It doesn't make sense. The rational, the power to reason is you're just failing your argument. You're the Messiah, and yet here you are, hanging on the cross. Because in this mind, the idea of God is a strong God, never a vulnerable God. But the other thief saw the power in God's vulnerability and said, in his heart, in his mind, God allowed his son to go this far? So he said, I'm a sinner. But please, when you go to paradise, please remember me. Between the two, brothers and sisters, we can see who is more seriously lost, the older brother or the younger brother. It is our idea of God that sometimes keeps us crippled spiritually. So I'm inviting you, those who are being represented by the older brother here, which is us, you and me, let us find ways on discovering God outside our comfort zone, outside our knowledge of Him. Let's experience Him the way He was experienced by this older brother when he finally saw the true gospel, when the father was celebrating because the son came back. Now, let's go to the younger brother. This is the younger brother who is never actually different from the older brother, except that he was given a place to know the Father outside his comfort zone. Okay? An act of love, another definition for the gospel or the prodigal father. This is an act of love that could make one realize and awaken to a transforming experience. Let's go and see the experience of the prodigal son, or the lost son, the younger son. Okay? Here is the little brother's belief, his idea of God. The lost brother said, I have to please the Father like one of the servants. Remember, he was feeding the swine and then realized, what am I doing here? Then it came to his mind, hold on a second. Feeding the swine, serving my father in his servant's quarter, which one is better? I'm going to go back and just be my father's servant. Okay? So, what kind of theology is that? It's nothing different, actually, compared to the older brother. The older brother says, work hard and protect the gospel because it is for us. And those who are protecting the gospel gets credit. And then he said, well, the younger brother, if I serve, I will get credit. And I can build on this credit that eventually, if my father would be pleased, from servant maybe to a more decent servant. And then maybe down the road, to be back as his son. So, as you can see, the mindset of this younger brother was, now I know what to do. I'm going to work hard to earn back my position. I'm going to work hard to earn back my status. I'm going to work hard, in other words, to earn my salvation. So he was rehearsing. While he was walking back, he was rehearsing, okay? And this is the point of awakening. When he was rehearsing, he didn't realize, have you done this, walking and just thinking what to say, not knowing that, you finally reach home. And then you feel like, I'm not quite sure if I'm ready because I really need to know what to say. So he didn't realize that the father was already there running, trying to embrace and hug him. Now, traditionally, the parable of the lost son, when the people were listening to Jesus, the whole community was brought to a place outside their comfort zone. And here's why. No father in that community would be seen running to someone who has been disobedient, to an erring son. No father would be running or be gracious. The way they train their children is a big spank or rod. Don't spare the rod. Go home, but you have to experience this first. That's why the older son was so angry when he was expecting a rod instead of party for that son. And the whole listeners were outside that comfort zone. Really? I mean, who did this in this community? So the father was running according to the story of Jesus and start embracing and hugging the son while the son was rehearsing and using and reading maybe the lines that has been thinking. He said, Father, I have sinned tremendously. Please forgive me. But according to the story, the father didn't wait to let the son finish the construction of his sentence. He said, quick, get the robe, get the ring, call the people, let's celebrate, we'll have a party, for this is a lost son and is now found. Brothers and sisters, that is a place of awakening. For the son to know, hold on a second, this is my father? This is the father I was thinking that I have to please so that I can be back, at least as a servant to his quarters? This is an awakening experience. But this is outside the comfort zone. So if we've been here sitting, knowing of God, maybe you can be invited to be placed outside our comfort zone, brothers and sisters, to fully understand and to fully experience the love of the Father. When I was going home, we went in the Philippines. I organized a reunion for my classmates, high school classmates. And they were all looking forward to seeing me because it's been a while. And then I realized that some of our classmates would like to come but can't come because their classmates, our other classmates are coming, and they have been feuding and fighting and have personal grudges. How can I be there if this is going to be there, this person? And I hated this person. Then I realized that when the party finally came, both this camp had shown up. And he was asked, "Why are you here?" One of the classmates says, "I thought you don't like that person." Yeah, I don't like that person. But he's not paying for the party. Geof is. Brothers and sisters, it is the Father who has paid for the party. I'm sorry if you don't like the person sitting next to you. You were not the one paying. I'm sorry if you hated the other person who has been so mean to you. And yet seeing that person inside the party, because the person who paid for this party has paid with his blood. Brothers and sisters, that is the awakening realization of how prodigal the Father is. He's willing to let go of his reputation, of his wealth, of his Son, dying on the cross for you and me. He paid everything for us, for you and for our enemies, for you and for those who cursed at us, for you and for those who has betrayed us, who has abandoned us, who has hurt us, who has manipulated us. We don't like them. But the powerful gospel, the prodigal father, has an irrational way of loving us all, brothers and sisters. And with this, may we keep God's love in our heart and let the living water flow freely. And let the water continue to nourish everyone, including those who hurt us, including those who hated us. Because God's love is prodigal, limitless, boundless, and irrational. God bless us all. Dear loving Father in heaven, thank you very much for giving us this wonderful love that we don't deserve. And in return, help us to love everyone. Help us to experience the mercy and the joy of giving. We know that we have limitations. We're hurting. And because of our hurt and pain, sometimes it's just too hard for us to love others. But bring us once again to the cross of Jesus, that we may be able to see once more the way you see every single one of us, valued individual in your sight. In Jesus' name, amen.
To reach a friend with the Christ-centered message of hope and wholeness. This has been Anderson SDA Church in Northern California. Thank you for joining us. For more information, visit our website at andersonadventist.org. We look forward to seeing you next time.